Thank you for joining us, Armani.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't we start with what is Backpack? You guys do a lot of things. I think you guys are loved by, crypto community, especially Solana community. Seems like everyone's just following, what you're building. Could you tell us more about what it is?
I think one of our investors said it best. I think it was Chris Berninski. He, if you look at the set of wallets and exchanges, he basically said, if you look at Coinbase, they're kind of like the Facebook of the exchange landscape. Everybody knows them, respects them, loves them. They're role models for many aspiring social media companies. But if you look at Backpack, we are, on the other hand, we're less like Facebook and we're more like TikTok. So we're kind of like a new up-and-comer. But there's really three parts of the business that all kind of go hand in hand to make a pretty unique and endearing community and product ecosystem. So on the one hand, we have the International Crypto Exchange. So we launched this a little over half a year ago. We've done over about 60 billion in volume to date. We have the wallet, so a self-custodial key management system like MetaMask, for example. And we have MadLats, which is our incredible, very genuine NFT community that likes to make ruckus all over the internet and is a fervent group of crypto natives around the world. So that's a little bit about us.
That's awesome. And you've been magician behind a lot of these innovation here. Could you tell us a bit more about your journey in crypto and your journey into Solana community?
Yeah, so my journey into crypto was not unlike the journey of many others. I started my career in Silicon Valley. I was working at Apple, a software engineer. I was sitting in the office, and I saw some folks trading Bitcoin during the 2017 bull cycle, and the price just kept going up, 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 and I just kept getting mind blown. And basically, I read the Ethereum white paper, got nerd sniped. I thought the idea of the decentralized world computer was the coolest thing in the world. And so I jumped ship, had no idea what I was going to do other than I just knew I wanted to work on open source software in crypto, and kind of the rest is history. I kind of got into Solana specifically after very quickly realizing that, well, parallelization mattered a bunch. And I think a lot of folks, particularly in the 2017-2018 bull cycle, looked at the current architecture of blockchains, which I guess I won't bore you with. It's been litigated and researched time and time again from then until now. But I just became a parallelization maximalist. And so got super excited about Solana and a lot of the other kind of modern blockchains that are with us today.
Yeah, I can't agree more on your beginning point about sitting on the desk at Apple and thinking about crypto. Because I myself was a robotics engineer and I was software engineer at Amazon, and with my roommate at the time, we would get off work at 4 p.m. and just start doing white paper reading and looking at the code on blockchain, and just got really hooked. And the energy in crypto community was just so different from any FANG company that I was with before. So definitely can relate on that. You built a Backpack wallet in the Solana community. Why did you choose to build wallet initially? That's an interesting entrance to the, I guess, industry. Obviously, it's one of the biggest gateway and also friction point. Why did you choose wallet to begin?
I think if there's one thing to point at in terms of why the industry matters and why a lot of us are here, it all boils down to self-custody. I think without self-custody, a lot of, what we're doing and what we're building doesn't matter. And so I think from that perspective, the wallet is one of the most important, if not the most important tool and gateway to bring people into the industry and to showcase the best of what all of this technology has to offer. And so from that perspective, wallets are extremely important, extremely exciting. I felt like we were able to bring something new into the landscape, particularly in Solana. It's obviously grown and evolved a bunch since then, but self-custody as the central tenet around a lot of why we're here, I think is kind of where we are coming from and why we went down that path.
That's awesome. And things got really interesting when you minted Matt Lad's NFT, and it quickly became #1 NFT on Solana. Could you share some of the metrics that you guys had through Matt Lad's, and why did you decided to do NFT?
Yeah, so I mean, going back to the Mad Lads mint, we had minted at the bottom of the post FTX bear market, particularly the Solana bear market, where the network was on the ground, it was knocked out,
It was a sad time.
people were kicking it on the ground, spitting in its face. It was a really dark time. A lot of the NFTs were like kind of the golden child of the network. There's incredible businesses like Magic Eden and Tensor and Hyperspace and others that were born out of the NFT bull cycle, and it really was what made, I think, the network culturally relevant in a way, and culturally robust and rich in a way that I think most other networks, basically all other networks other than Bitcoin and Ethereum, have I guess been unable to reach. And the Mad Lads Mint was unique in the sense that we had the ability to customize it beginning to end. I think a lot of people at the time were really used to these launch pads, but where you have this cookie cutter approach to minting an NFT for the first time. But an NFT mint is probably the most important point in time for a project, where you have an opportunity to tell your story, where the entire world is looking at you in a way that is really hard to replicate after you've built the project. And so we always went into the mint from the perspective of like, this is the most important moment for Mad Lads. We're going to kind of show to the world kind of how we're different, what we're excited about, showcase our products, and really take advantage of the attention. And so we built this entire experience from beginning to the end, including the whitelist. So before we even got to the mint, we had a Discord filled with a bunch of ravenous NFT lovers around the world, people that were downloading the wallets, downloading the app, playing, AI-generated guessing games like Dolly and these things were coming out at the time, and basically we made a bunch of games where you had to compete to earn the whitelist for the NFT. So we had like AI images where you had to guess the prompt. We had like noises where you would hear like, I don't know, an owl screeching and you had to guess the type of owl. We had these Minecraft 3D puzzle hunts where you had to like open up your wallet and like go through this world to find these invite codes. We just built a lot of stuff that was able to really, I think, kickstart the storytelling and engagement in a way that I think was, pretty unique and new. And I think that is kind of, a lot of what led up to the hype. And then, fast forwarding to the actual mint, I mean, we built a bunch of stuff. I won't kind of go through kind of the entire experience. But what was unique about the mint experience is about a week before we minted Mad Lads, I got a message on Telegram from I don't know what you want to call him, a hacker, a white hat, a black hat, a gray hat, a security researcher, I don't know. But he basically said, Armani, I can take down your site, pay me money. And he was basically extorting me. And I was like, well, no, like I'm not going to pay you money. He was just like DDoSing us basically. And so we get to the mint, and this guy comes back, and you kind of see all the requests and the logs, and it was basically this kind of somewhat point in time famous battle between like us and this group of folks that were just trying to DDoS the mint to prevent us from minting or to simply steal all the NFTs. And so it was kind of this back and forth battle between us and this this hacker, or whoever, whatever you want to call him, that made it for a pretty dramatic event. We ended up having to delay the mint a day because we weren't able to like mint it successfully. Basically, the trade-off was you can mint it now and the guy steals all the NFTs, or you can wait a day and build up more anticipation and mint it successfully. And so we chose to fight the battle, and I think that turned up being the right choice in the end.
Wow. How did you choose the MATLAB's kind of visual, language, and what's the story of that specific style? Who were you trying, like what kind of personas or community were you trying to appeal to?
So I think the metaphor that I like to use to describe this is, it's easy to like look at an NFT project, or look at an artist, or look at a company, or anybody for that matter, any type of creator, and say, oh, this person's a total genius. Like they sat in this room and thought about this problem really hard, and through their soul or divine intervention, or was able to come up with this really creative thing. But I think the right metaphor is actually much more of like excavation, where if you can think about like, you're in the world, or you're in the desert, and you're digging in the sand, and you find your shovel hits a rock, and then you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting, and then so you keep digging in that area, and then eventually you unwind or uncover this lost civilization of some, I don't know, building or structure or monolith from an alien civilization. I don't know. That was there. You just discovered it. And I think the creative process is very much like that. I think we had a couple design constraints going into Mad Lads. I think the first design constraint was, above all else, it has to be different. It has to be, there was a bunch of creatures at the time, and so something as simple as just use a human. And then, you start thinking about the fashion and the art direction, and then, okay, well, an interesting point in time that everybody really kind of resonates with is like 1930s, 1940s, like British and American gangsters, right? That like look of like, the Peaky Blinders and things like that. And I think a lot of credit goes to Tristan for kind of pioneering the anime and that art direction. But it was all about just like uncovering these things one by one. So that was like the first moment where we saw a piece of artwork and we're like, okay, that's interesting. The Peaky Blinders or the like American gangster inspired artwork. And then like slowly but surely, one by one, we had kind of new pieces of like creative inputs that helped discover, I think, the IP or whatever you want to call it. I think another big moment that I really love to talk about is this moment from Gonzalo, or Monkey.Soul. He's sitting in the stand here. He made this Quentin Tarantino-inspired clip where it was like all these like famous movies, like Kill Bill and all these things. And he had the Kill Bill soundtrack playing in the background, and just the words "mad" on it. And we didn't use it for anything. It was just like kind of like a creative piece of inspiration that I think emotionally distilled the soul of the artwork.
I was actually at the launch event in New York.
Yeah, so there was a bunch of moments like this that you can point to, and it wasn't like any one of them that like is responsible, but it was really the mosaic of all of them coming together and creating, I think, what became the Mad Lads. There's obviously the community and the Mint experience and a million and one things that you can point to, but I think that's like kind of the really interesting and really beautiful thing about the creative process, is that there's not like one moment. It's a million moments that over a long period of time come together to create the picture.
That's awesome. Now moving on to the exchange. It's quite a ambitious, bold move to go from wallet to NFT project, and now you built very loyal, very active, and high buying power consumer base in your community. Why did you decide that now is the time to build centralized exchange that's fully compliant for your community?
So it's more or less my kind of belief that most projects in this space will end up in one of two extremes on the decentralization spectrum. And this may or may not be controversial, I don't know. On one side of the spectrum, I think people will be completely and totally decentralized. These are the Uniswaps of the world, really representing the best of what the industry has to offer, whether it's immutable smart contracts or like really novel incentive mechanisms that are able to coordinate people from around the world, where there's no single point of control, there's no fragile central point of failure, it's censorship resistant and kind of decentralized in like the truest sense of the term. Really, I think a lot of the original ethos of the space. And then there's like the other side of the spectrum, where you have traditional finance, basically, where you have the compliance teams, you have rules and regulations, and this regulatory infrastructure that kind of underpins a large part of the financial systems and the various countries and locations where you're serving users. And that's a really important component as well. And I think one of the big challenges with the industry is a lot of folks have been in this awkward middle ground where they talk about decentralization, but they're really actually not decentralized or actually really quite fragile. And I think in the limit or in the end state, you really have to be at one of these two extremes. And for us, the wallet is one extreme, and the centralized exchange is the other extreme, where the wallet is just a piece of code that you run on your computer client side. That's the epitome of free speech. Nobody controls your fate other than yourself. And the exchange really is a traditional financial institution. It has to follow all the rules and regulations that any other compliant exchange has to comply with. But as a result, you get to tap into a lot of the traditional assets and value that kind of underpins a lot of the world. And I think that's probably a pretty interesting part of the conversation in terms of what does the exchange actually unlock. But that's kind of the underpinning philosophy that I think led us into it.
That's a very ambitious philosophy and also the vision there. Could you share us some of the numbers around Backpack Exchange so far? You guys are the newest exchange in the block, and you guys been scaling quite impressively. Yeah, where is Backpack at, and what are some of the milestones you guys have so far?
Yeah, so we launched with a spot-only exchange on Solana, Bitcoin, and Ethereum a little over half a year ago. The time is kind of becoming a blur for me. But to date, we basically were able to ride this wave of Solana from $8 to $200 back down to what it is now. It's 140 or 150, I don't know. And there was a ton of token launches that really launched that were kind of the accumulation of honestly several years of just really impressive engineering work, whether it was a wormhole, whether it was Pyth, whether it was Drift, Tensor. A lot of the most, I think, impressive teams on the Solana network launched at one of the most opportune times for us, which is right when we started the exchange. And so I think we got quite lucky in that we were able to ride that wave with a lot of those token projects. And so year to date, we've done about 60 billion in trading volume from folks all around the world. And so yeah, that's probably the biggest kind of metric that is, I guess, quite interesting.
Yeah, and as we wrap up the panel, what's Korean market for you, for backpack community? Why is Korean market important for backpack as exchange, community, and more?
I think Korea is obviously known for a lot of its really creative culture. We were talking before coming up on this stage about all the artistic events and festivals and shows and a lot of the culture that is based here in Korea. And I think, if you think about Backpack and Mad Lads, and I think the heart and soul of, I guess, the brand, it's really rooted in cultural elements in a way that I think is pretty unique about our kind of wallet and exchange. And so I think that is probably the first thing that I would point to that makes me most excited about Korea more broadly.
That's awesome. Well, Armani, thank you so much for joining me in KBW this week, and thank you so much everyone for joining us today at this stage.
Thanks for having me. Bye.